Ow. What's up, everyone? Punchy back with Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3 to Higurashi. And the deed is done. Oh, man. It's been a while, so luckily I've been able to kind of step back. Kind of mellow out before we get back into this. And Punchy did it. He killed him. Lightning and the thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground, and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening, he leapt as his knees gave out under him. I remained alert for a few moments, and then thud, thud. I planted both knees in the ground, and then fell forwards, burying my head in the ground. I've been holding back my ragged breaths, but now it all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light, and unable to maintain my balance, I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? Got a double tap. I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, then I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again. And then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Then once again I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. Oh, Jesus. After spending a few moments making his head into Mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different, and started to spray a filthy, dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Satoko's uncle, nor pity towards Satoko herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It began to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's back like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. But that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that it ended Satoko's uncle for all eternity. Alright, Punchy. Calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply followed the man as far as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now that I realized how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight. I looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was. This is... oh no. This was the one road connecting Hinazawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Satoko's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate, and they wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first. And I wanted to get the shovel back from where I'd left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I would have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour, and more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I'd left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he'd never existed, and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards, and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while, I let my desire have its way. After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually seemed like it had been lying there for a very long time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle in the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. I didn't think it would be so heavy. I was a little surprised. Once I had it upright, it felt fairly easily to roll it along. Still, pushing this thing all the way to the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times of how far away the swamp was. This motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it would be basically the same as a bicycle. Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? My plan suggested my exhaustion. The anxiety at getting on a motorcycle for the first time withdrew. Oh no. I turned the key, and then you just kicked this pedal, right? Yeah. It's on. And then I gripped the handlebars. First the right, then the left. Whoa! Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. I lost it for a second, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time slowly, gently. That time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. Mion once told me you could get a scooter license within a day. She was clearly right. This was pretty easy. I needed to throw the metal bat into the swamp too, but I didn't know how I'd pack the bat onto the motorcycle. Without much other choice, I stuffed it into the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. If I put the tip down the seat of my pants and hunched over, it wouldn't fall out. I got back on the bike, and this time without any difficulty. I carefully pressed the button labeled light and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. I probably really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any way of seeing at this point, and had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They were all either soaked through with the rain and hurrying on their way home, or had their umbrellas low on their heads down. Yesterday, I might have been wary of even these passerby, but right now, it didn't seem much cause for concern. In fact, it probably would be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. There is that thing where it's like, the best thing to do is act like you belong, right? More and more though, I started to think that idea was naive, brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed a steep hill. On the bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycle is sure convenient. For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed it. Watanagashi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. He's not a good child. Not anymore, at least. Still, it wasn't like the way the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found out you were playing at the swamp. But some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out here sometimes to see giant crayfish in the place. They talked about it before, well, that sentence kinda got me, apparently. They talked before about how they'd go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid and just tie it to a fishing line and throw it. All the crayfish would come running. Once I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp had waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff-like stop, I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of Watanagashi, Stoko's uncle's corpse was found in a thicket by the road leading to the town, and Punchy Maribara went missing. People would whisper that I'd been demoned away. The fifth year's curse would be a half-baked one by my own idiotic and very inept actions. I got off the bike and twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go just when it seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a far fainter splash than I'd imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't even make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy, after all. It would be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp, and it would be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down to the land of the demons, but I did have a tincture of regret when I did it with Satoshi's bat. The muddy water washed off the gore sticking to it, and it sunk easily. I think that would be pretty suspicious, you know? If, like, they knew that I was gone, and then they happened to, like, they come across that it disappeared. I mean, I guess, yeah, anyone from the school could have taken it. But considering how, I don't know, the rest of the school felt about, like, Satoshi being demoned away, I think that's, it's leaving something there that could be connected. I don't know. I had sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning to the locker from before. Oh, returning into the locker from before, so I could continue keeping watch over Satoko. It could continue keeping watch over Satoko, yeah. Satoshi, I probably, well, misunderstood you. Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I am absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Satoko. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know. That was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that piece and lost it within days. So I swear to you that I will live life to the fullest from now on. Live it enough for the both of us. I will live on as though this week, this day never happened. But I will forget this short time we shared together for as long as I live. I didn't know what expressions Toshi made when he listened, but as someone who had protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved on its own accord, and the bat I hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There wasn't even any ripples when it hit the surface. That surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment, I regretted having thrown it, but I realized that might would have been what Satoshi had wanted. You're right. I still can't let myself give in to emotion just yet. I'll return for my shovel, get on my bike, and dig a hole to hide the body and bury it. It seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted, and I had to do it all tonight. Still, she left me with only the advice that I need to finish this up soon, then fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path I'd ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together. Punchy may borrow. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and I looked for the hole in which I'd hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I'd hidden it deep into the forest, not wanting it to be seen, and now everything was black in the night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized just how big this annoyance really was. Wait, you can't be serious. The sweat the rain washed away before came back up to my skin. Deep, deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach. The fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I had been able to kill him right away like I planned, I didn't know if I still could have buried him without a problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction and might actually get lost in there. That might have been exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. Oh right, my house's storage room. There was another shovel there, the same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Mayor Barrow is written on the shovel. But it seemed like an unusual item from an import variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything. I should give up and go back to the storage room. And there was an electric lantern in there. If I used that for light, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark, could I light the way with just the lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark night. I couldn't discard the possibility of it drawing eyes. And I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I left the body there for a pretty long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing was to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First I'd go back to the storage room at home. Then I'd get the lantern. Now that it's gotten dark, I still need a light to dig a hole for the body too. And I'd get the other shovel. And I'd deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel, and bring it back. I had to do at least that much. But I was so tired. But complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, none had ever been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. Oh man, and what a night. Like, you watched him finally do it, but then we watched his plans just kind of crumble and things began, like, problems and holes beginning to happen. I mean, honestly, we figured something bad would happen. And we will end there for today, but I'm going to keep going today because I want to knock out some recordings. Just hopefully this goes out tonight, because I haven't had any time really to record or edit and upload, so I'm glad to have the time now. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.